front camera on my phone's naked too.
Yeah.
Might be time to upgrade.
Yeah. It's like it's turning you into like a hidden identity or something, you know?
Yeah.
Jason from Psycroptic, welcome to Nightbreed, man. How's it going?
Good, man. Really good.
Excellent.
Hoping we can do some shows soon.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's a bit of a worry, eh?
Oh no, it's like we've had a carrot dangled in front of us for a few months now, and then all this bloody coronavirus outbreak stuff is all starting again, and we're done. Shit, hope this all goes ahead.
Yeah, that's it, man. Me too.
But, take it day by day at the moment.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. It was cool with you. I wouldn't mind starting at the beginning. So, like the band formed in '99. You joined way back in 2004. So that's coming up 17 years, right? Like.
Yeah. It's been a long time now.
Yeah. What do you remember about when you first joined, like meeting the guys and all that kind of thing?
Well, I've known all the guys for a long time. Me and Cam, the original bass player, we went to school together and grew up together since we were kids. Joe and Dave, been friends with since probably 5 years or so prior to joining Psycroptic, or probably even longer. So I already knew the guys really well before it all happened, but I actually got called in. The first thing I did with them was Dismember tour in Europe. So I sort of went in as a session to begin with, and then I think Chalky came back and did a couple of shows in Australia, and then after that they parted ways with him and got me in. So it was crazy times. It was kind of, I was only, I would have been probably 22 or something at the time, so life was moving pretty full steam, and lots of travelling and stuff. So it was an exciting time, and it's kind of funny at the moment with we haven't done shows and stuff now, so it's coming up on 2 years. Starting to look back, at footage on YouTube from back in the early days, and sort of starting to reminisce a bit more about the early days of the band. So it was really exciting time, back then. Sort of, getting to meet and play and tour with all the bands that we'd grown up listening to and becoming friends with them, and thinking, oh my god, life's pretty good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a really good time. I've got a lot of fond memories from back in the early days.
Yeah, that's cool. How did the European metalheads compare to the Aussie crowds?
They're a little bit. It depends where you go, really. But I think all in all, the Aussie crowds are probably the best for us. Being hometown, we've always put a lot of emphasis on touring out here and building our career out here. So I think we're always going to do better in Australia than anywhere else. But in lots of parts of Europe, crowds still get pretty crazy. We were out probably 2.5 years ago. We were out in Europe with the Versions crowd, and we had a full Aussie lineup. We had some really, really good shows on that one. I think there was a show in Hungary where it was sold out, and it was just fucking crazy. And so it does depend a lot on what parts of Europe you're in, but I think generally Australian crowds, for us especially, are just nuts.
Cool.
Which is good, it's always good to have right in your backyard where you're doing most of your shows.
Yeah, definitely, man. So your first recording with the band, Symbols of Failure, comes out through Neurotic Records. What do you remember about that first album recording?
Well, that album, when I actually joined as an official member, the whole album was actually written. So
okay. Yep.
I sort of came in, Dave gave me a whole heap of lyrics and said, all right, here's the album, here's the lyrics, you figure out how to fit them in, and you're in the studio in a couple of weeks. So it was pretty much my sort of beginnings to the band. It was like really hit the ground running, First shows I did was on a European tour, get back a few months later in the studio recording an album, and then basically hitting the road a lot after that album was released. I think that was sort of when, after the European tour and then putting Symbols of Failure out, and Neurotic Records were really keen to get us, trying to build a career in Europe. So they sort of, kept organising good support slots, good tours and stuff for us. So it was just, it was really full steam ahead at that stage of the band. But Symbols of Failure was actually the first one that Joe recorded as well. So as far as Psycroptic goes, I've never actually worked with any other producer than Joe. So it's been a really good way to do it. And, we've got it down to a fine art working in the studio together now. So couldn't imagine actually working with anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Yeah. The 2008 album, Observant, comes out through Nuclear Blast. That's a pretty big deal, man. Like, yeah, because you've been in the band like longer. Were you a bit more involved in the writing that this time around?
I didn't have anything to do with the lyrics on Observant. I still sort of, I don't know, at that stage, I sort of wasn't really confident when it came to lyric writing and stuff. And Dave was, in a really sort of good creative space with all that stuff. So he did the lyrics for that album, but yet again, I did all the vocal phrasing and put the lyrics to the songs and stuff. So yeah, it was that was crazy times as well. When we first signed with Nuclear Blast, it was kind of like, geez, you're looking at the roster that you're on, with a label, and you're looking at some of the biggest bands in metal really at the time. So that was it was a little bit daunting to say that, coming from, always being, dealing with smaller underground labels like Neurotic and Unique Leader and stuff like that. And then you're kind of thrown in this huge pool of, Dimmu Borgir's and, all sorts of big name stuff. But yeah, I mean, that did a lot of good for our career. I think with Observant especially, they really pushed that album, and it got us into, got us on some good booking agencies and got us on good tours and exposed to some good crowds. And I think that was where things really sort of started building for us. And we started, I think it was just before that album was released, we did our first US tour. And then sort of after the album was released, it sort of opened things up for us to try and build things in the US. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Again, like I asked about Europe, how are the US crowds for you guys? You get good reactions?
US crowds have become really good for us over the last few years. We've got Todd, our bass player, he's American, so I think that's sort of, I don't know, made things easier for us to tour out there more now. And signing with Prosthetic Records for the last few albums, it's they're sort of predominantly US-based labels, so I think having them on our side pushing us over there has really sort of helped things along as well. So crowds have been good. We've done a few headlining tours out there now, which, I mean, they're not ginormous. We're not filling 1,000-cap rooms, but, we're not playing to no one. So, we're sort of averaging probably 150 to maybe 300 people a night out there, and crowds are good. We get a lot of, I actually found on the last headlining tour we did out there after we released As the Kingdom Drowns, we found that all the fans out there that were coming to the shows were like really sort of super pumped, sort of guys that would be coming and buying lots of merch and, keen to meet and hang out and chat with us and stuff like that. And people that had sort of been following what we've been doing, since the early days. So that was really, really good experience, that last one out there.
Yeah, I'm talking about As the Kingdom Drowns. That video is like where the guys are playing guitar. It's some pretty iconic spots. How'd all that come together?
That was we were on tour in Europe, and our tour manager that we had on that tour, Paul Maguire, which is a good friend of ours, he he's also a really good video guy, and he's just one of those, you know, really super pumped creative guys, and he was just kind of constantly like, come on, we're here, you know, we've got to get Todd playing bass in front of Checkpoint Charlie, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it was just one of those random things that, you know, we had someone that was keen to do it, and we were in the right spots, basically. I think it's got Joe shredding at, I think it's on Mozart's grave or something like that. Or so, yeah, it was. I mean, it was kind of a random thing to do, but yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was kind of cool the expeditions we go on, you know, each day, because when you're on tour, it can get boring as shit, you know, at times. But then, you know, you've got someone that's like, all right, such and such is round here. Let's go get Joe Haley shredding some guitars at this spot, and we'll film it and we'll use it for a playthrough. It's kind of like, yeah, all right, why not?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So if we fast forward a little bit to last year, it wasn't a great year for anyone really, but
No.
you guys put out the Watcher of All EP, a couple of tracks. Did you still get people checking that out?
Yeah, as far as I know, the EP's been received really well. So, no, it's been good. It was, you know, it was a bit of a different thing. We've never really been a band to do singles or EPs or just release a couple of songs. We've always been get in the studio, write and record an album, release albums. So it was kind of like, well, we were in the process of starting to write all the stuff for the next album, and Dave was like, how about we just get 2 songs completely done, recorded, finished, do an EP, get that out, and then we can, you know, sort of spend some serious time working on the album, which that's pretty well finished at the moment. So
All right, cool.
there should be announcements about that starting to roll out hopefully in the coming months.
Yeah, nice. Oh, good to hear, man. That's cool. So you reckon we'll hear about that pretty soon, the 8th album?
Yeah. I'm not sure. There's no release date, I don't bet, or anything at the moment. I think all the mix is just getting wrapped up at the moment. We're waiting on artwork and sort of all that sort of side of things to all come through. But yeah, it shouldn't be too far off. And then hopefully we'll have a release date in the coming months. But yeah, all everything's recorded, and it's I don't know. I suppose all band members say it, but I think it's some of our finest material yet.
No, good to hear, man. That's cool. Yeah. Is the Watcher of All are those tracks gonna feature on the album?
I'm not sure. We did. I think it was one of them. We ended up mixing to have the same mix as what the album does, but I'm not sure whether it's actually going to get get put on the album or not. So okay. We'll see.
Yeah, sure. Being in Psycroptic so long, how much do you reckon your sound's changed over the years?
A lot. An awful lot. Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much the sound, but the style of writing and stuff we do. I think, you know, you listen to the early stuff, but then you listen to the stuff we've done now, you can definitely tell it's the same band. You know, Joe's got a really unique sort of way of getting around a fretboard. So I think more than anything, we've just, back in the early days, there was a lot of focus on technicality and I suppose the wow factor. Whereas I think as we've got older, we've put a lot more focus on songwriting, and we, you know, want to have everything be catchy. And so I think that's a big part. But we've also got, we've got a lot more experimental. Whereas in the early days, there was never choruses. It was just a whole big string of riffs and stuff, where now we're like trying to put big epic choruses. You know, the last album we used Joe's wife Amy doing, you know, operatic sort of vocals, and there's going to be some of that featured on the new album, and you know, and using a lot more synth and stuff like that. So I mean, I think we've kept the core, you know, sort of style of what the band's about, but I think we've just, as each album goes, we sort of experiment and throw more ideas in, and just we're not a band that we don't look at it and say, all right, well, we've got to write a most fantastic tech death album, of the year. It's like we just want to write some good songs. If it sounds good to us, we go with it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So we talk about recording. Like, what's your recording setup? Like, are you guys doing stuff at home, or is there a studio you're always going to? Like, what's the go there?
Joe's actually got a studio, so that's his job. He's got Crawl Space Productions, so he's actually just redone all his studio. It's underneath his house. So we do all the guitars, vocals and stuff there, but drums, I think they're done at a different studio down here in Hobart, usually. So, which Joe just sort of hires a studio space because he doesn't have space in his studio for doing, big drum kits like what Dave uses and stuff. But yeah, generally it's all up at Joe's studio, so it's a really good way to work because you're kind of not watching the clock so much. If you go into an actual studio space with a hired engineer, you're kind of really watching the clock, and you probably tend to not experiment with stuff so much. Whereas when we do it with Joe, it's kind of like you go in there with your ideas, and when you actually lay stuff down, you can be like, it doesn't quite work. Let's try a bunch of stuff and working with, like, Joe's pretty much the mastermind behind all the music, so he's generally got a fairly good idea of how he thinks things should sound. So yeah, it's good having him sort of doing all the recording and the mixing and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, cool. So where have you guys got, like, a rehearsal space or something when you're getting ready for shows and that?
It's actually the same studio that the drums always get recorded at, which is down here in Tassie. We often Dave will come down before tours. Well, I mean, there hasn't been any tours for quite some time now, but yeah, we often sort of just book this studio space out for a few days, and we'll get in the room together and start going through stuff. But leading up to this run of shows, because we haven't been, I haven't seen Dave personally for about 2 years now nearly, so me and Joe have just been going into his studio, and we've just got all the backing tracks and stuff like that, and we just jammed together over that. I think Dave's got all the tracks minus the drums, which he just sort of practices to over in Melbourne, so it's a bit of a weird way of doing it. I think Dave's meant to be coming down here on Saturday, but who knows what will happen now. We were hoping to sort of be hitting the rehearsal space next week a fair bit, and really get stuck into it and try to get the feel for it back again after such a long period off.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess at the moment you're just waiting for news, right? Whether you can play these shows or not.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's hard because everyone's been like, all my friends down here are like, oh, well, if nothing else goes ahead, at least we can play in Tassie. But it's kind of like, well, no, we can't, because we've got to get 2 people over here from Melbourne. So if the Tassie government isn't letting people from Melbourne in, well, then we're kind of fucked, really.
Yeah.
But we're trying to stay positive about it, and it's just kind of at the point where everyone's experiencing it, with all this shit. It's kind of out of your hands. You can try your best to hold off on cancelling anything, but it all depends on what the restrictions are with travel and all the rest of it. So just fingers crossed that it can all go ahead.
Yeah, that's it, man. Cool. All right, well, look, thanks for your time, Jason. Fingers crossed you'll be on stage before you know it. And yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing the new stuff, man. Thanks a lot.
No, all right.
Cheers, man. Have a good one.